Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Dennis Brown, and I want to thank you for joining me on my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. It's Monday at noon, so it's the right time. For those of you that are catching this on replay, thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you hit me up in the chat box with hashtag replay. I love to hear from my replay folks. I know sometimes in the middle of the day is not the most convenient time for you to join me live. For those of you that catch me on replay or live, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. Today, just to give you a quick teaser, we're going to talk about the biggest mistake that I see new brokers and agents making when providing freight quotes for their shippers. And today I'm going to dive into that. This episode, I put this training together because I get this question all the time. How do I provide the most accurate freight quotes for shippers? And so, I see this mistake being made constantly. And literally, this mistake can cost you millions of dollars if you don't fix it. That's no exaggeration in any way, shape, or form. You have to fix this mistake. And I'm going to go over it today. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a quick agenda. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to do the training, right? We're going to talk about this topic. Then after that, we're going to do a free giveaway. We're going to give away another Freightpreneur t-shirt, okay? We're going to give away another Freightpreneur t-shirt, a little bit different instructions this time. So don't jump the gun, because in order to qualify, you got to do something a little bit different. And then I'm going to do live Q&A at the end for anybody who wants to join me or stick around to the end and ask some questions. Okay. So that's the agenda. That's what we're going to do today. I'm excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much. Hit me up in the chat box. Let me know where you're logging in from. I'm in the Buffalo, New York area, specifically Clarence, New York, which is a little suburb just outside of Buffalo. Lifelong resident, been in Western New York, love it here, minus maybe February and March. But ultimately, I love the weather here. Where are you guys based out of? Give me a heads up, and I'll try to give you guys a quick shout out before we start. Welcome, Cynthia Moore from Maryland. Thank you. Nelson Sanchez from Florida. Joaquin Gutierrez from South Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. Amy Coe from Cove Springs, Florida. Rob, the cowboy from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. It sounds like a place where a cowboy would live. Tiffany Mitchell from Berlin, New Jersey. Tej Singh from Toronto, Ontario. Janali Corp from Cape Coral, Florida. Corey Ritchie from Atlanta. Anna Marina from Euphrated, PA. Dina from Silver City. Oh, geez, I just had a big skip there. Where was it? Hold on. Sorry about that. Dina from Silver City, North Carolina. Sheila Wiggins, welcome. Raymond Case from Pasadena, California. Masana Anderson from Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's see. Good afternoon from Bahamas. Mark from the Bahamas. Ken Shields from let's see, where we at? Derek from Little Rock. Mia from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Ken Shields from Huntsville, Texas. Amanda from Abilene, Texas. Here comes Texas. Andreas from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We never forget about Andreas. Tanya from North Carolina. Lisa from Las Vegas. Andra from Atlanta. Elizabeth from Birmingham, Alabama. Heather Evans from Lost Creek, West Virginia. Ed Lopez from Illinois. Greg Price from Marshville, Missouri. Cyrus from Florida. Oh, geez. Had a little bit of a glitch there. Give me un momento. Let's see. Eric Vall from Santa Clarita, California. Sam Lipscomb from Colorado. Ed Lopez from Chicago. Carolina from Florida. Man, we got so many people. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry if I couldn't give you a shout out this week. Join me next week, and I will certainly try to do that for you. Again, thank you for joining me here today for this Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. For those of you that are joining a couple minutes late, today we are going to talk about the biggest mistake that I see new brokers and agents making when it comes to providing freight quotes for their shippers, for their prospects, okay? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, I'm going to do the giveaway, okay? If you guys want to qualify, I'm going to give away one of these shirts today live. You have to be live when I give it away, and you have to be in the United States because that's the only place I ship. Sorry about that for everybody outside. I apologize, but it doesn't make sense to spend $50 to ship a $25 shirt. Okay. So if you're in the US, then you can qualify for this shirt. Here's all you have to do. Lean in and pay attention. There's one simple thing. Well, there's two simple things you have to do. The first thing you have to do is you have to go to my YouTube channel. So you have to open up a browser window. If you're not on YouTube already, maybe you're on Facebook, open up a browser window, type in, go to YouTube, and then type Freight Broker Bootcamp. You'll find my channel. You'll see my big bald head showing on the channel, and you have to subscribe to the Freight Broker Bootcamp YouTube channel. Okay. Make sure you subscribe to the right channel. You can also get there by going to youtube.com/freight brokers, plural, freight brokers. So what I want you to do is I want you to go there now and subscribe to the channel. You got to click the subscribe button and then hit the bell that says get notifications, and then come back in here and type in the chat box that you subscribed, #subscribed. Okay, that's all you need to do to qualify as someone who can possibly win this shirt. I'm going to give this shirt away after the training. So you have from now until after the training to do that. Okay. It's only going to take you probably a total of 1 minute to do that. So what I want you to do, again, listen carefully. In order to qualify as someone who can win this shirt today live, go to youtube.com/freight brokers, or you can just search for Freight Broker Bootcamp. You'll see my bald head. Go to the channel and then subscribe to the channel, and make sure you actually click the bell notification so you get notified when new videos and trainings come out. That's all you got to do. Then come back in here and type #subscribe. That's going to let me know. And then I'm going to randomly pick one of the new subscribers to the channel, right? If you're already subscribed, great. And just come back in. You don't have to resubscribe. Just come back in and type #subscribe. Now, this is an honor system. I'm not going to go and check everything. But ultimately, I trust you. I trust that you're going to be honorable, and I look forward to seeing if you can win one of these shirts. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So if you guys want a chance to win that, I usually give something like this away every week, whether it be a book or whether it be a shirt or something. And so thank you for joining me today. Let's dive into the training, okay? Because this is an important one. This is one that can make or break you as a new freight broker or freight agent. And the topic is the biggest mistake that I see new brokers and agents making when it comes to providing freight quotes and freight rates for their shippers. All right, so let's walk through this really quick. As a broker, as an agent, after you've kind of got set up and starting to develop your niche, you're going to start doing outreach to shippers, to shipping prospects, manufacturers, distributors, importers, exporters, people that make or distribute products throughout the United States or even in other countries, okay? You're going to start doing outreach. You're going to start cold calling and emailing and using social media, and you're going to start communicating with your target market. And during those communications, what's going to happen is at some point, one of those shippers, one of those prospects is going to ask you to provide them some rate quotes. They're going to give you some lanes and the equipment. Like they may say, all right, well, we've got van loads going from Buffalo to Atlanta every week. We'd like you to quote on that lane. And so here's where the mistake comes. New brokers and new agents, what they do is typically they've enrolled or subscribed to one of the load boards, and maybe they've enrolled and subscribed to one of the rating tools that are built into those load boards. And the biggest mistake they make is that they go to those rating tools and those rating, those analyzation tools or whatever you want to call them, these tools that provide rating data. And what they do is they quote the freight to the shipper directly from that data. So what I mean by that is when you put a lane into one of those rating tools, Buffalo to Atlanta van loads, it's going to give you kind of an average rate. So let's say, for example, they give you an average rate of X dollars per mile or a flat rate of Y, okay? The mistake is what I see, the reason why this is a mistake is because what I see typically is that these rates, these rating analytics tools can be off by as much as 10 to 30% at any given point. And so if you quote that lane to your shipper based on solely that data from the rate analyzation tools, what you'll find that you may be underbidding, you may be overbidding dramatically compared to what the real rates are and what the spot market rates are going for today. So they give a blended average. And what I find is that those rating analyzation tools are a good starting point, but I never use that data or those tools exclusively to determine the rate quotes that I'm going to quote my shipper. Okay. So that's only a starting point. There's a couple of steps you need to take after that in order to get accurate rate data that you can provide to your shippers based upon that day and where the market is today. Okay. Because what you have to understand is that data that you're getting from those rating analyzation tools is data that was compiled over the last 3, 6, 12, 18 months. Okay. It's not today's data. It's the data from the past. And so, the past can help you to predict the future and give you trends, but it's not the most accurate data. And so here's what you would do in order to take that rating data that you got from the rating tools and make it even better. And it's really simple. There's 2 things I recommend that you do. Number 1, in your load board, whatever it is, truck stop or DAT or whatever load board you're using, they typically will have what's called a lane history, where you can go in and type that Buffalo to Atlanta van load, and you can see a history of all the carriers that have posted their trucks in those lanes over the past 30, 60, 90 days. And so that's going to give you a list of carriers that have historically posted their truck in those lanes consistently. Now, if a carrier posts their truck one time in the last 30 days in that lane, I probably wouldn't call them. But if a carrier posted their truck 10 or 20 or 30 times in the last 30 days, I probably would call them. And the reason why is because they have a truck consistently in the Buffalo area that they're looking to get back to Atlanta. So that could create a good partnership, a good relationship, because if I have the freight and they have the truck, we can both make money and build each other's businesses. And so that lane makers tool is a great way to source carriers in a specific lane. Now you have a list of carriers, but that's not enough, right? What you need to do then is you need to call those carriers, especially the carriers that have posted their trucks multiple times in those lanes. Call those carriers, let them know you've seen they've posted their trucks. You let them know you have some freight coming out of those lanes. You're trying to find some partners to work with on a dedicated basis. And then what you do is you're going to remember that rating data that you got from the rating tools. And let's say, for example, the rating data said from Buffalo to Atlanta, the rate was $1,200. I don't know what it is, but let's just assume it was $1,200. What you're not going to do is you're not going to give them the rate of $1,200 because, again, you have to negotiate. You have to assume that that rate is high and that you want to get a little bit lower and have a starting point to negotiate with that carrier. So my suggestion to you is if that rate was $1,200, you might come to the carrier and say, hey, listen, it's a van load, it's a full truckload, it's 43,000 pounds typically. And it's Buffalo straight to Atlanta. It's 900 miles. I don't know. It's probably around 900 miles. And it's going to be $1,050 to the truck or $1,100 to the truck, whatever it is. Below whatever the rating tools gave you. You might start $100 or $200 lower with those carriers that you're calling on. Well, right away, 1 of 2 things is going to happen. They're going to tell you, okay, great. That sounds like a good rate. Or they're going to say, well, I can't do it for that. And if they can't do it for that, if they can do it, now you start discussing the details of how that's going to work and the relationship, and you build that relationship. And now you have a carrier you can call on that has trucks in the Buffalo area consistently wanting to go to Atlanta that you can then call on when you get those loads from your shipper. And you also have some validation on a rate. Now, the other side of the coin, they're going to tell you, oh, I can't do it for that. There's no way I can do it for that. And you're going to hear that a lot because just like you're negotiating, the carriers are negotiating. They may come back and say, well, I couldn't do that for less than $1,250, or I couldn't do that for less than $1,400. So what you're trying to do right now is you're trying to gather some spot market data on what that freight would move for today. Okay. And so you're going to note that. You're going to call 5, 10, 15 carriers on that lane, and you're going to gather that data. And you're going to make a record of every single one. Here's XYZ carrier, here's the rate. Here's ABC carrier, here's the rate. And these are the rates that you've negotiated. And then at this point, now you're going to take that type of data and you're going to be able to leverage that data to actually give the most accurate spot market rates. Because you know that if you called that carrier today and they had a truck in Buffalo, they'd run it for you for $1,150. So it doesn't matter if the rating data was telling you it was $1,250 or $1,400 or $900. The reality is that if you look at that average of what you're getting the feedback from those 5 or 10 carriers, that's going to give you a much more accurate rate quote than just the data from those rating analyzation tools. Okay. So that's one thing you can do, is use lane makers to get a list of carriers that you can then call and then negotiate rates based on the fact that they have trucks available in that lane regularly. The other thing you can do is you can actually post that lane to a load board. So you can post a live load to the DAT or to the truck stop or to another load board. And what will do happen then is, if it's a good lane, typically you're going to start getting inbound calls, right? You're going to start getting some inbound calls on that lane. And once you start getting some inbound calls, you're going to do the same thing you did with the lane makers scenario. You're going to start a little bit lower than what the rating tool said, and you're going to negotiate, and then you're going to document that rate as a carrier that you could potentially do business with. So that's really the simplest and most accurate way to get rates that you can then leverage to quote your shippers. So once you figure out that average, let's say it came out to $1,100 of what you were knowing it was going to cost you to pay a truck from point A to point B, Buffalo to Atlanta. Now you're going to add your markup. Maybe you're going to add $100, $150, $250, depending upon your specific scenario. My suggestion with new shippers on your first lane, start a little bit lower with the margin, maybe 10 or 15%, because you can always increase that margin over time. And you can also get new lanes. There's always going to be more lanes that they're going to want you to quote on if you do a good job. So you're not going to want to start out quoting 20+% on every lane when you first start. You're not going to add 20% margin on top of that. So you're going to want to keep your margins a little bit lower based on that spot market data that you were able to gather from the carriers. Okay. So I've been talking really fast, so I'm going to give you a quick summary, right? Start with the rating tools and get the data that the rating tools are saying, whether that's truck stop or DAT or wherever you're going. Notate what that starting point is. Then use lane makers to get a list of carriers that are in that lane, call them and negotiate a rate lower than that number, and then make a list. And then you can post a live load to the different load boards, and you can do the exact same thing. Inbound calls start happening. You can then start a little bit lower than what the rating data gave you, and then you can negotiate a rate from there. Now, by then you should have 5 or 10 carriers that have given you a pretty good rate that you could call on to cover those loads if you had a load tomorrow. Okay. So that's the basic framework of the most accurate way to get a freight quote. And the biggest mistake, once again, that I see new brokers and agents making is they use the rating tools exclusively to do quotes. And what you're going to find is that in most cases, you're going to be high. You're going to be consistently 10, 20% higher than what the spot market is today, at least in today's market, right? Again, if there was no volatility in the market, right? If there wasn't these ebbs and flows in the market and it was just flat, those rating tools would be a lot more accurate. But the problem is they take a historical look at these rates, and what I found is that, they're typically off, and they should not be used exclusively as a tool to create and to generate the freight quotes that are going to go out to your shippers. They should simply be added to the equation. They should be a part of the analysis, but you shouldn't take those rates directly from the analytics tool and just quote your shipper based upon them. You're going to find out you're either going to be very high or very low, and either way, you could be in trouble. Okay. So that could prevent you from getting a lot of business, or worse yet, if you do get the business, you won't be able to cover it. And now you've destroyed that relationship, because you're going to have to give that load back to that shipper, or you're going to have to go back and ask them for more money. Either way is not a good outcome. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did enjoy that and you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We've trained over 10,000 students. Yes, I just ran a query and checked. It's over 10,000 students now over the last decade. We offer a 60-day, 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. And, we are well known to be the most cost-effective and comprehensive online freight broker training program available on the internet today, right? Again, this is a go at your own pace, self-serve, operate from home, don't need to travel, don't need to do anything. Check out Freight Broker Bootcamp if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or freight agent. All right, awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I'm sure you have questions, but hold your questions till the end. Don't post your questions now, because if you do, I'm probably going to miss them, because now is the time we're going to give away the shirt. Okay, so I'm going to give away one of these shirts, the Freightpreneur shirt. And so let me grab a quick drink. And for those of you that want to enter to win this shirt, here's all you got to do. Go to my YouTube channel right now, youtube.com/freight brokers, youtube.com/freight brokers, plural. It'll bring you to my YouTube channel, or you can just type in at YouTube, you can type Freight Broker Bootcamp in and my channel will come up. Go to the channel and click subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click the little bell that says get notifications. Okay. If you do that, you're going to be notified each time a new training video comes out. And these are all free videos that I'm putting on YouTube every single week. Okay. Similar to this. And so ultimately, that's all you got to do. And then come back into the chat room, come back into the chat, come back into the feed, and then just simply type in #subscribed, #subscribed. And that's going to tell me who's actually subscribed and who's entered to win. Okay, so this is a little different than I normally do it. Normally, I just make people share, but today it's going to be a little bit different for the giveaway. Okay, so for those of you that that want a chance to win the t-shirt, go over to YouTube real quick while I grab a drink. And then after I give away the shirt, stick around. We're going to do live Q&A. Okay, so we're going to do some live Q&A in a minute. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, but hold the questions. Okay, hold the questions until after I give this away, because otherwise I'm probably going to miss your question. Okay, so I'm going to grab a drink of one of my favorite drinks, Arnold Palmer half and half tea. And yeah, and they're not a sponsor, but I do love it. And then we are going to get the ball rolling. Okay, good. And if you're already subscribed to the channel and you go over there and it says you're already subscribed, make sure the notification bell is on, and you can come back in if you're already subscribed and type subscribed, and that'll let me know. So I'm not trying to penalize people that are already subscribed. What I want to do is I want to get more people subscribed to my channel. We have almost, I think it's close to 30,000 subscribers to the channel now. I think it's almost doubled in the last year. And so it's really starting to pick up. YouTube has been a great channel for people to learn about Freight Broker Bootcamp, get trained for free, even outside of my Freight Broker Bootcamp online training program. And it's just been a great tool for everybody and a great experience for me. I get to work and help a lot of people through YouTube. So, all right. So you got last chance to get enrolled to a chance to win the shirt. YouTube.com/freight brokers. Subscribe, hit the bell, come back in, type #subscribed. I'm going to give away the shirt, and then we are going to go on to the live Q&A. Hold your questions. Okay. All right, few last people coming in, subscribing. All right. Cool. All right, guys, so here we go. We're going to give away the shirt. Now, caveat, understand, I mentioned this earlier. You have to be in the United States in order to get the shirt, because I'm only shipping in the United States. And secondly, you have to be live. If you're not live, then you're out of luck. Okay. You got to be live on here in order to do that. So unfortunately, if you got disconnected or you had to take a call or whatever, you have to be live in order to win the prize. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to scroll down through and I'm going to randomly pick one person as I scroll down through the feed. And the winner is Heather Evans. Heather Evans is the winner of the Freightpreneur t-shirt. So here's what this says. It says, someone who solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. I'm going to send that t-shirt out to you, Heather, today. Well, this week it'll go out. All I need you to do is go to the Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page and message me your full name, your address, your cell phone, and your size. Okay. So make sure sizes hold pretty true. I'm about 190 pounds. This is a large. So you're about 190, maybe 195 after this weekend. But ultimately, make sure you include your full name, your address, your cell phone for tracking, as well as your size. And I'll get that out to you this week. We've sent out, I probably sent out, geez, I don't know, it's got to be 100 t-shirts by now that I've given away. It's got to be close to that. But yeah, I do. People love the Freightpreneur shirt, so I continue to give it away. And I'm sorry, but I don't sell these. So they're not even something you can buy. Maybe in the future, I'll set up a little store where you guys can buy them at cost. So if you guys really want that. But right now, I don't have that access to that. I haven't set it up. I just have been too busy with other stuff. But ultimately, yeah, that's what is going to go out to you. Heather Evans, congratulations for winning the shirt. Great job. And everybody who subscribed and played along, thank you for joining. If you want a chance to win the shirt, come back next week, as well as getting some great free training. You'll also have a chance to win a prize. Right. So, all right. So let's go into some Q&A. I have a feeling that there's a bunch of questions. So feel free, now that we've done the giveaway, to type in your questions, and I will absolutely try to answer your question. Now, I can't promise that I'm going to have the answers to everything because, the first thing I learned is that I don't know everything, right? And so if I don't know the answer, I'll try to find the answer for you. In most cases, when it comes to starting, building, or growing a freight brokerage, I've been fortunate. I've done over $200 million in sales as a freight broker, went on to sell my business after growing it to over $80 million a year in sales. And I've helped countless people start 6- and 7-figure freight brokerages. You've probably seen and heard from some of them in the different success stories that we've highlighted in these interviews. People like Yogi Goswami and Eloy Lozano and Monica Gonzalez and Franklin Ndekwe, and the list goes on, right? There's a lot of people that I've been fortunate to work with and that have been a part of the Freight Broker Bootcamp course and community and different trainings we've done that have went on to build great businesses. And so I'm very excited about that. So let's see what these questions are. Oh boy, I got a bunch of questions here. Okay. Okay, so here's a question from Brittany. Do you provide documents for brokers to use? I'm interested in training, just not sure what to expect. I'm a newbie in training that I want to work under a broker as an agent. Okay, so Brittany, yeah, we provide the documents, the forms, and the education that you need in order to become a freight broker or a freight agent. And we include the training for freight broker and freight agent in one course, because a lot of people, when they first start, they don't know if they want to be an agent or a broker. And if I sold the courses separately, you'd have to buy 2 courses, right? So I put it all into one, so you don't have to pay twice. And so, yeah, we teach we not only give the tools and the documents and the forms, but we also give the education and the process that you need to become a freight broker or a freight agent. Plus, Brittany, we offer a 60-day, 100% money back guarantee. You can't go wrong. I can't make it any easier. Enroll in the training. If you like it, great, keep the training. You got 60 days to do it for free. If you don't like it, then just send us a message, send us an email at support@Freight Broker Bootcamp. Say, hey, I wasn't happy with the training. I want a refund, and we'll refund your money. Simple, very simple. Okay. We've had over 10,000 students. If you read the online reviews, I'd have to tell you that, our customer satisfaction rate is probably like 95 to 97%. And the only reason why there's a handful of people that weren't happy is because I think, maybe they thought it was a get rich quick scheme, or maybe they thought that this was, some $5,000 program. I mean, we sell these programs. The starting point is $185 for a full year access, right? Plus we have a lifetime membership now. So definitely check that out. I think you'll be very happy. And if you're not, once again, just ask us for a refund. We will absolutely, no issues. We will give you a refund. Okay, Andreas. So Andreas, would you recommend having the analytics software at all for a starting business, or would you just call the carriers and get the rates this way? If you have the finances and you can afford the rating, at least one of the rating tools, I would get the rating tools if you can afford them. If you can't and you're on a real budget and you're really bootstrapping really tight, then you absolutely don't have to have the rating tools to get started. You can get the rates by simply calling on the carriers, but it will be faster and more accurate, and you'll have a better understanding of where to start with those carriers if you get the rating tools. Okay. It's that starting point in that baseline that I gave you in that example, Buffalo to Atlanta van loads, where the rating tool said it was what, $1,100 or whatever. So I was able to go in and start at 1,000 or 900 with a carrier. If you didn't have that baseline, you wouldn't know where to start. And here's the mistake that brokers make. They'll call a carrier up and they'll say, hey, I got a load from Buffalo to Atlanta. How much do you want? That's just plain dumb. Okay. Because a carrier wants as much as they can possibly get. So they're going to say, well, I need 1,500 for that lane. Right. So you're automatically going to be starting a lot higher than you need to. If you have that rating data and you go a little bit below that, $100 or $200 below that, you're going to have a pretty safe starting point. So that's why I suggest using the rating tools as a starting point. Good question, Andres. Thank you. All right. Oh, geez. Adam, how to deal with ocean freight from China or Taiwan? Do you recommend anyone from Taiwan? And now, this program is really not about international ocean freight. This is more geared towards over the road truckload partials and LTL, right? With a heavy emphasis towards full truckloads. So this is over the road freight, typically is what we specialize in Freight Broker Bootcamp. And that's what most brokers specialize in. There's very few brokers that have a full-time niche of just ocean freight. Now, there are freight forwarders, international freight forwarders, and companies that do specialize in that, but that's a very unique niche in that you need to have a lot of additional knowledge and skill in order to properly manage, the international component. You have so many laws and regulations, and every country is different. And so it becomes, it's really is kind of a crazy niche. I would only recommend somebody starting there if they have a significant amount of experience or they're willing to really take a slow boat to China, so to speak, in regards to learning that process, because it's going to take some time. So I really can't help you much there. I mean, we moved ocean freight, but I would tell you it was probably less than 3% of all the freight I ever moved was ocean freight. Okay. So I'm probably not the most qualified guy to help you there. No problem, Michelle. Glad you joined us. So Miguel, here's my advice. You say, I'm opening a business with my father doing hot shots, but looking to do freight brokerage too. Any tips? My tips are get trained. Get trained. Find a program. Find somebody. If it's not Freight Broker Bootcamp, find somebody that you're comfortable with and the reason why I say this is because you could absolutely, if you're a smart person and you have the time and energy, you could probably figure this out on your own, but it's going to take you this much time and there's going to be this much in mistakes. If you take a training, it's going to compress that time down to this, and the number of mistakes you're going to make are going to be here. What is the value of that? Is it worth a couple $100? Is it worth a couple $1,000? Absolutely. So my suggestion to you, my best piece of advice is to get trained. And I don't care whether you take Freight Broker Bootcamp or you take something else, but that's my advice, regardless of whether I was selling a course or not. When I first got started, you have to understand, I had no experience in logistics, transportation, training, freight brokerage, any of that. I had zero. I mean, I knew less than you guys know right now. And so what I did is I went out and hired a consultant who had over 20, 25 years of experience in the industry at that time, back in 2003. And I paid him about $10,000 to fly to Buffalo and spend 1 week with me, 5 days, just 1 week, Monday through Friday. I spent $10,000, and that $10,000 saved me millions of dollars, okay, on the back end in mistakes that I would have made and the time it would have taken me to go from from 0 to $1 million to $3 million to $6 million to eventually $80 million a year in sales. So that's my advice to you. That's my advice to anybody looking to get started. Do some basic research. If you think that the industry is something you'd be interested in doing yourself, whether it be a freight broker or freight agent, find somebody to get trained under. The easiest and most cost effective is an online course. You also have schools where you can actually fly and go in and sit in a classroom. They're a lot more expensive, but they can be very, very good. No, Tiffany, we don't have an operating agreement. Operating agreements are really only for partners, right? If you have a partnership, you're going to need an operating agreement. If it's just your business, you don't really need an operating agreement. Okay, so Lukey says, as a freight agent, do I need to form an LLC? No, by law, you do not need an LLC. You do not need a corporation. You do not need any separate entity. By law, you don't need that. You can operate under your own name and your own social security number as an independent contractor. But my suggestion to you is if money is a little bit of a challenge and you decide to start out as a freight agent operating under your own name, that's fine. What you should do is eventually you should set up an LLC or some corporate entity. And here's why. Because as your business grows and your business gets bigger and you're moving more loads and generating more revenue, your risk goes up because you have more touch points, more opportunities where there could be someone that could potentially sue you, right? I mean, there's always a potential in any business that gets sued. If you own a pizza restaurant, someone walks in, slips, falls on the floor, they might sue you, okay? The same thing for a brokerage. You're not going to slip in a pizza restaurant, but ultimately it's a very small risk, but it is a potential risk. By having an LLC or a corporation of some sort, a separate entity the business is registered under, you will protect your personal assets. So that means your house, your retirement, all of that. They can't sue you for your personal assets. They can only sue you for the assets of the business. And as a brokerage, there are no assets because you don't own trucks. You don't own homes. You don't own buildings. You just own customers and you own cash flow. That's all you really own. And so that would be the suggestion for someone getting an LLC or a corporation once they get up and running as a freight agent. But you don't need it to get started, but it is a good idea long-term from a risk management perspective. Dub Sauer asks, hi, Dennis, I'm a student. Congrats. Thank you for joining. What's a good source and tip for getting carriers other than the database who are actually interested in working with brokers? Thank you for your time. The best source for you to find carriers that are actually interested in the loads that you're moving are the load boards, the DAT and truck stop. So if you have shippers that are giving you loads from Buffalo to Atlanta, I'll use that example again, or Buffalo going down south, or Buffalo going out west, or whatever lanes they're in, the best way to source carriers as a new broker when you first get started is to use the load boards, to use lane makers that I shared with you earlier in this lesson about getting rates, sourcing carriers that way, to post live loads and search for trucks that are in the lanes that you're looking to move. Contact those carriers, start developing a rapport, a relationship, and use that as the seed to start working with those carriers. Because the goal is to not just find a carrier and do what I call a one and done, where they move one load and then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. They move on and they never move another load with you. Your goal is to find carriers that you can use over and over and over again and work with on an ongoing basis in a partnership. Those are the best relationships. Ideally, if I found a carrier that was moving Buffalo, that was wanted to move Buffalo to Atlanta, and we could agree on a rate and we could agree on the service level and we were happy, I would, best I could, I would make that carrier dedicated on every one of those loads. So if I had a load every Monday that went from Buffalo to Atlanta and he had a truck every Monday, I would say, listen, you can become dedicated on this load. And then they become dedicated for that lane. Now they don't have to post their trucks. Now we have a real partnership. Now we have a real relationship, right? It makes their job easier, makes our job easier, and makes the service for the customer more predictable and overall a better service experience. So hope that helps. Thanks for checking in, Oren. Cindy, no worries. Thank you. Good job. Yes, Rob, there is. Is there more to handling a container from a rail yard, not a shipper? Yes, there is. If you're doing drayage, rail drayage, meaning you're picking something up at the rail line and you're moving it via truck to another location, whether that be to a port or whether that be directly to a shipper, yes, there is more to it. Yeah. There are there's different types of accessorial charges and ancillary charges. Whenever you're dealing with any sort of intermodal type freight, which is where you have multi-mode, you're doing intermodal rail is where you pick up at a truck from the pickup location, you drive it to the rail then drives it to the line haul, then you pick it up from a truck and you deliver it to the end user. So there's two truck movements and one rail movement, right? Same thing with intermodal ocean, right? You pick it up at a truck at the pickup location, you bring it to the port puts it on the ship ships it across the sea, and then it goes into another port, and then a truck's got to do the final delivery, right? So it gets a lot more complex when you're doing anything intermodal. My training does not focus in on intermodal, right? It's very complex. It's very hard to teach. It's not something that I would recommend for newbies unless you have a good amount of experience in and around that niche. Now, it's not something you can't learn, but I don't teach it in the training because it's not the direction that most new brokers and agents are going to go. But I'm not trying to discourage you. I just want to be real with you and give you the facts. Ricardo Jones, what is the best way to market to shippers? Email or cold calling? There is no best. There is no best. The best way is to do both. Okay. The best way is to have a multi-channel, multi-touch point sales cadence where the goal with your initial outreach is to get their attention to start a dialogue. I don't care what channel that is. Sometimes it's cold calling. Sometimes it's email. Sometimes it's LinkedIn. Sometimes it's direct mail. Sometimes it's face-to-face. Whatever the case is, you should be using a multi-touch point outreach strategy, a multi-channel sales cadence. This is what I teach in my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. That I think we're going to be in our 4th week now of completing that training, which is great. I will open it up again. It's not open or available right now, so don't ask me. You can't get enrolled right now. In the future, you can, but right now you can't. So if you guys want to get on the wait list for that, it's closed right now. I sold it out. But if you want to get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, you can go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/FBSA. That'll bring you to a page. It's going to tell you that it's sold out, but if you click on the link, it will allow you to get on the wait list for the next release, which I'm hoping will be in September, October, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't finalized the date yet. So I'll keep you posted. Get on the wait list. So there is no perfect. Both are great when used properly, but I believe in a multi-touch point approach. It's the most effective way to get your prospects' attention. Cyrus has a question. When checking carrier rates to true up with the rate tool, the broker will have on all the checks on the carriers selected to make sure they're viable partners, correct? Well, any carrier that you're going to potentially use, you're going to have to vet, and you're going to have to make sure they have the proper authority, the proper insurance. You're going to have to make sure that they're adequate based on the FMCSA's, regulations, right? So yeah, no matter what carrier you do business with, you're going to have that. But here's the thing. I may not during that rating process do full due diligence on every one of those carriers because I might not be using them. But if they're on a load board, right, and they're active on a load board, then their authority is typically going to be active, because if their authority goes inactive, the load boards will shut them off. Just like if you were a broker and your broker authority went inactive, they're going to shut your account off because you're no longer a broker. So if a carrier is on a load board, listed on a load board, and working actively on a load board, that's a basic level of vetting right there, because you know that the load board is already validated that they're actually active. But I probably wouldn't do full due diligence on every carrier that I get a rate from. It's too time consuming, especially when you may not ever use them. But I definitely would do that with every carrier before I use them. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so I'm scrolling. How much time we got here? All right, so we got a couple more minutes. All right, so here's a question from Adam. Mostly shipping managers say they have their own fleet, customer routed or vendor routed. Can we still get the business? Probably not. Well, if they have their own fleet, that doesn't mean they don't outsource. Let me break these down individually. If they have their own fleet, it typically does not mean that they move all of their own freight inbound and outbound. It typically means that when possible, when cost effective, or when necessary, they put it on their own trucks. But even companies that have their own fleets outsource to other carriers and other brokers. Know that. So there is an opportunity there. You just have to peel the onion back a little bit further and ask those questions, okay? As far as customer routed or vendor routed, those aren't objections. Those are conditions. If they don't control the freight bill or the freight spend, there really isn't much you can do. But if they're saying that they have, all the freight that they ship out is customer routed, meaning the customer is directing who the carriers are coming in to pick it up and they're handling the freight bill, there's only two options. You can either try to ask who the customers are. In most cases, they're not going to give you that. Or you can ask them about their inbound freight. You can say, yeah, I understand that your outbound freight is customer routed that are going to your customers, but what about your inbound raw materials? Okay. Because if they're manufacturing something, or they're extruding something, or they're somehow involved in that process, typically they're going to have some sort of inbound freight before it goes outbound. So you can always ask them about their inbound. That would be my suggestion. But don't waste a lot of time on shippers that are telling you that that it's customer routed. They don't control the bills, because if they don't control the bills, there's no opportunity for you to, there's probably not a lot of opportunity after you ask them about their inbound. If they're just telling you there's nothing there, spend your time filtering and focus and finding shippers that do have freight bills and freight invoices that they control. Okay, so here's a good question from, I don't know what the username is, but what do we say to a shipper if they badger you to give them a quote ASAP? How do we buy more time for research and analysis? Okay. So you just simply say to them, listen, Joe, I could just spout off some sort of a rate quote randomly without validating and making sure that it's accurate, but I don't think that's what you want from me. What I take pride in doing is when I provide a quote, it comes with a truck. That means you can bank on that quote and know that I'm not going to come back to you and ask you for more money. So if you can give me 15 minutes, I can get back to you with a quote, no problem. And that quote only will be quick, but it'll be accurate. Okay. Which is probably more important to you, right? Now, it's impossible for Joe to say no. It's impossible for him to tell you that he wants an inaccurate freight quote. Okay. So, I just made that up off the cuff, but ultimately the shipper wants an accurate rate quote more than they want a fast rate quote. So if you explain it to them that you can get back to them in 15 minutes with a basic rate quote, and what you'll do at that point, you'll hang up the phone. You'll do exactly what I said with lane makers. You'll do exactly what I said with live loads and finding carriers on the load boards. You'll start making phone calls. You'll be able to get 3, 4, 5 carriers that you've validated the rate with. And then at that point, you're going to add your markup, add your margin, call them back, and there's your spot quote. It's as simple as that. And that happens all day, every day with successful brokers. It happens all the time. Whether they have existing customers that need more lanes or more quotes, or new business maybe they're working on and they need quotes for that, or whether it be new prospects that you're just doing freight quotes for the first time. That process happens all the time. Once you get good at this, you can turn that process around in 5, 10, 15 minutes. Okay. All right, so I'm scrolling. I'm gonna do a couple more questions and then I'm gonna call it quits today. I got to run out. I have a meeting this afternoon. Okay, so here's an interesting question. I never sample melodies. Can agent work be outsourced to another country? Yeah, if you're a broker, you can hire agents in other countries and they can either, and a lot of times what happens is those agents will contact US based shippers and do business. Now, the advantage of doing that is typically cost, right? So if you hire somebody here in the US, it's going to cost a lot more than when you hire somebody in the Ukraine, or when you hire somebody in the Philippines, or when you hire somebody in South Africa, or you hire somebody international, right? Our lifestyle standards and pay is much higher. So you can't outsource that. There's pros and cons to that. And I'm not necessarily going to get into all those. There's the language barrier, there's the time difference, there's the cultural differences. There's some things like that that you'd have to overcome. But I know, for example, I had a client that I worked with a few years ago on a consulting project. It was a small consulting project, who was in the Ukraine, and they were an agency for a large brokerage here in the US, and they did over $100 million a year as an agent from a foreign country. I'm not going to tell you where they were or who the broker was, but they did over $100 million as an agency. Okay. And for a US based broker. So yes, you can. There are pros and cons. So you'd have to check that out. Interesting question. First time I've gotten that one, I think. All right. Thank you, Raphael. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Okay, so here's a question. Raphael asks, quick pay versus factoring. Okay, quick pay and factoring are two different things. Okay, let's start with quick pay. Quick pay is what carriers ask for when they want to get paid quickly. So it's a service that brokers will offer, typically a 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, something like that. Quick pay, where the invoices are going to get paid, the carriers are going to get paid in full within 1 day, 3 days, 5 days. So you don't always have all of those, but those are usually the options. And they're willing to do that at a discount to the invoice. So that you may charge them a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% fee for that quick pay. So as a broker, it's a service you offer to carriers as a convenience to them and as a way to increase your margin. Factoring is when you, as a broker or a carrier, whatever you decide to do, whatever role you're playing, uses a specialized financing company called a factoring company that actually will purchase your invoice at a discount and then give you the money up front, and then will wait for the payment on the back end. So I'm not trying to confuse you, but they are different. They look similar, but they are different. So here's the scenario. If you're a broker and you want to offer a carrier a quick pay, in most cases, you're either going to have that cash in the bank ready to pay them, or you may have to factor your invoices through a factoring company to give you that cash so that you can quick pay your carriers. Okay. So understand that, there's a little bit of complexity there. But in a lot of cases, they work together. They're not separate, especially in that scenario that I gave you as a broker needing cash flow to finance the cost of a quick pay to a carrier. So hope that helps. All right, guys. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. We did a bunch of questions. We talked about a great topic. Rating is something you're going to need to learn how to do. I hope that gave you a little bit of a roadmap on what not to do and what to do. If you guys enjoyed this, right, and you got value from this, make sure you like this stream. Hit the like button right now. Share the stream. Let everybody know about the weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Again, it's absolutely free. truly appreciate you guys being here. If you are in that bucket where you've been doing some research and you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're intrigued about what's next, what can I do next, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Check it out. Been in business over a decade, have trained over 10,000 freight brokers and freight agents. And I'm happy to announce that we're over that 10,000 mark. We have been for a little while, but I hadn't run the query yet. So check out Freight Broker Bootcamp. We offer a 60-day, 100% money back guarantee. We are well known to be the most cost-effective and comprehensive online freight broker training program. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. And I will see you next week, Monday at noon, for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I'm out.